There are a few reasons why it's important that we use product development to solve the gender protection gap. Firstly, we can think of it as a sort of altruistic approach. In a world that's striving for financial equality, it's really important that we make financial protection accessible for more people. Here, Plan V Care is focused on millennial women, and these are a group of customers that are generally underserved by the protection market. In the UK alone, we have more than 8 million millennial women who currently predominantly don't engage with financial protection. So opening up that market represents a tremendous commercial opportunity.
So on the product development element, what we're really saying here is that the fact that we have a group of actuaries, underwriters, innovators, strategic setting all together to think of what exactly the word people means for us and who are the people that need to be targeted as well. And then we just realized that by doing this work, we just see that there's many people that we've been kind of excluding in our reflection for many years. And those people it happens to be as well, into the gender gap. So the idea behind it of making sure that we want to close this gender gap in insurance is by making sure that under product development we have from the day one thinking and designing product that really makes sense for the population. And that's what for us, we understand that the work of actuaries, underwriters, innovators, strategists, and etc. into the company will definitely help in finding the right product, the right cover, because everyone is different, everyone has a different needs, and those things will really obviously change the life of many people. So once again, in our purpose of protecting people, we have understood that people means very everyone, and that's why we need to spend time to close the gender gap in this case.
In RGAX, we typically start with the customer problem before we design the solution, and I can talk about that in just a moment. But here, as I've already alluded to, one of the problems that we observed is that women of this age group are generally left out of the protection conversation. And if I give you the context of what that really means, it means that when customers go looking for financial protection or try and engage with it, there are no brands or propositions that are specifically tailored towards them. And we know that that's something that this group of customers expect. They want to buy products and engage with services that they feel are comparable to others outside of the protection industry. When we've worked with customers and sought their feedback on some of the pain points around buying protection, they've told us that current propositions feel a little bit pink, they're a little bit patronizing, they're a little bit outdated. There are absolutely some propositions that are in the market that really are targeted at women, but only if you have children. So all of those women who don't have dependents currently are underserved by the protection industry. And it's really interesting, if you look a little bit more deeply at it, you can see that in some of the ungendered products that are available for customers, there is actually a bit of gender bias, either in the language or in some of the imagery. And the reason that this is also important is because one of the things that we have learned over the last few years of experimenting with digital initiatives in the market is that it's pretty standard to have a really high bounce rate for customers who visit your website. So you could have 70% of customers who land on your website immediately going elsewhere. And so that means that we have to work really hard to ensure that customers who do arrive on your website can immediately engage with it. They understand why they're there and they feel that it's for them.
I think what my colleague just mentioned, Kate, it's very important to see that we receive information from customers saying that, yeah, we've seen things happening around gender, around female protection, but usually it's like, if you have kids, then we have something for you. Or usually you come on a page and it's only about, being pink. And that doesn't make sense. And so for us at RGX, it's really kind of solving problem by asking to the people what exactly is happening, or what is the experience they're having, what is the issue that they're facing. We're using different methodologies for that. Behavioral science is important. Our interviews with customers is important. And most important for us, kind of a mix of design sprints, which is one of our key elements for innovation. And what we want to be solving here is to really understand what is the issue the customer is facing. And by doing that, we kind of find the best solution together with the customers. Like we don't kind of work in silo and then say, hey, come back, we have the perfect packaging for you. I think on the product that, Kate just mentioned before, Plan V, it hasn't been a project that we found that there's an issue and all of a sudden we had a solution a week after. We spent weeks and their days and hours and weekends sometimes to really speak to customers, to spend time with some experts to design what exactly would make sense for the customers. And I think what we need to solve is really this point. For many years, we are what we have been doing. I'm talking about the industry in general. And by industry, I mean insurance, but also the financial industry in general. What we've been doing is kind of designing one size fit all, where we have this great product that we do, we understand it is great, but then we just pour it into the markets. Today, RJX doesn't want this to happen. RJX want to make sure that we are so different, coming again to the word of, what I've mentioned before, being people. We are different in terms of people, in terms of personality, in terms of need, and we need to design what exactly makes sense. And I think this is the power of having the ability to have different diverse team at RJX that help us to get into this objective.
It's really important that we start with the customer problem first before we even think about designing the solution, because ultimately, whatever we design, we want to put in the hands of the customers. So it has to work for them. That means that we have to understand the specific pain points that they're experiencing when they're trying to engage with financial protection. So starting with the customer is really important. It underpins something that we call life design sprints, which is a methodology for solving complex business problems that we launched in around 2018. So it's a really crucial part of the process. Now, when we think about it in terms of designing an entire proposition, we also have to think about it from the insurer's perspective and from the distributor's perspective, because what we want to do is we want to collaborate with our partners in order to grow the market, to find ways of reaching these customers. So here we're thinking about it in three different sort of contexts. If we think about the customer problem, in order to validate that, what we did was engage with around 150 women in the UK, the working group, and around 1,000 women in Spain through a survey. And the objective was, as I said, to really understand what it is that prevents them or makes it difficult for them to engage with insurance. Now, from the customer's perspective, what we found were there were three areas that caused pain for them, that made it difficult for them to purchase insurance. And the first was perhaps not unsurprising, but was around confidence. So there was a sort of sense that customers didn't feel that they were able to either understand it or access it or make decisions, or in fact that somebody else might be able to make those decisions on their behalf. And in fact, one of the women that we spoke to gave herself a 2 out of 10 for financial literacy, despite the fact that she owned her own home and she'd paid for her master's degree up front. So clearly, these are capable women who feel intimidated by engaging with protection. So that's one problem we have to solve. We also know that customers experience a difficulty when they think about long-term protection. So we see that they spend money today on health and wellness. We see them spending disposable income on gym memberships, supplements, self-care. But they haven't yet connected the idea of this longer-term financial planning as part of today's sort of self-care. And so we think there's an opportunity to reposition protection from that perspective. And then the final key observation that we found from the working groups and the surveys was that there was this disconnect between really the ability to decide how much insurance they need today. Now, we know that that's a problem in the D2C space anyway. When you haven't got somebody to really anchor you on the right amount of insurance, how do you make that decision? So again, we need to find ways that we can smooth that for customers. And then if I set the customer problems to one side and think about it from the insurer's perspective, in the UK market, we know that the market's been flat for around a decade, and there are pockets of the market that have struggled more than others. So critical illness is a really good example of that. Now, one of the things that insurers could do is they can add to their product suite. They can try and gain new grounds within the market by having different offerings available to customers. But I think we all know that critical illness just can't work in the D2C space. It's too complicated. Customers don't understand the difference between a benign brain tumour and a heart attack and a stroke, and when they can claim and when they can't claim. And in fact, customers told us that they weren't really worried about these sort of older age conditions. They were worried about cancer. Cancer was the product that they were really concerned about. So again, we think it makes sense to start with a product like cancer only as an entry product for this market. And then the final set of problems is around sort of what distributors are experiencing. In the UK market, again, we know that it is a saturated market. At any one time, you could have 1,000 adverts for insurance through Facebook. It's noisy, it's competitive, and it's also really expensive to acquire customers in this way. It could cost between £600 to £1,300 to get a single customer. And so tailoring the proposition means that you're more likely to engage with an audience who actually want to buy your product, and they're more likely to continue through the journey.
Like the way that we are acting every day, the way that we're buying, we're shopping, I think that we like. We all realize that every kind of brand, company, product that we're buying every single day with a high level of loyalty is always because we feel that this product has been designed just for us. So the example is going to be okay, there's so many brands in terms of, cars, for example, but you will see people preferring one cars, maybe a German or a UK, whatever brands. But the reason behind it, if you ask them, it's really never about being rational on their decision of buying one brand or the others. It's always something irrational. It's always something that where they just feel that the product has been so much designed for them because of the communication of the product, because of the design of the product, because of the experience that the product is offering. So naturally, what Kate is saying as well regarding insurance is to, like, if we talk about women, we could have been sitting all together and having like 2 or 3 female leaders at RGA sitting together and say, hey, what do you like as a product? And just like design something in silo and then come back to the market and just pour it. But we knew that was not the exact way to do that. We knew that we had to have the proper conversation, being face to face with the person, spending time in the same room, having a coffee, and those conversations would give us the right product. And what we realized that even if in terms of product development, RGA, we're capable of doing kind of everything. We can protect you for everything that you need, everything in terms of critical illness, for example. We have many examples of different countries. But what we have seen, as Kate just mentioned, is that cancer protection is the one that people worry the most about. And without this conversation, without making sure that we are specifically looking at what the person is having in the back of the hand, we wouldn't have been able to create this product. Or at least we have been able to do that, but additioning maybe 2 or 3 other elements that people at the end of the day don't really care about. And that's why we really make sure that we have the focus. And that's why I really recommend everyone in our industry looking at how other industry works and just say effectively, what I need to do is just to have something simple. The one size fits all doesn't work. And I just need to have something that the customer is kind of expecting. And sometimes they don't demanding for it, but they are expecting us to provide it and bring it on the table. And that's the point, what is important. And if I have to think of a brand like Apple, for example, today, everyone is using it. But when they designed it first, it was made for designers because they knew that this is the experience that the designer wants. And today, other people have seen it as a standard and moving towards using Apple. But at the beginning, it was for designer because they have spent time with the designer to say, what are the things that, keep awake at night and how I can improve that, how I can make something that will make your life easier. Yeah. And that's the same for us, some element that we apply in this type of project.
The underlying product for Plan V Care is a cancer-only product. And the product itself is an important part of the proposition, but it's not the whole proposition. Because we're operating in a D2C market, we have to be really careful that the product that we design is simple, that customers can easily understand what's included, what's excluded. They can understand when something is an additional payment and what forms part of the comprehensive part of the product. And in the UK, we're in line with the ABI guidelines, the ABI standards. So we have a definition that's robust, that we think is really clear for customers to be able to understand. But as I said, the product's only part of it. The other part of it is how you reach your audience. So there's lots of expertise and experiments around Facebook. So we know broadly how Facebook works. We can see who's advertising on Facebook. We know what the metrics are of selling via Facebook. But Instagram is largely untested. And actually, it's where our commercial audience is. One of the things that came out strongly in our customer testing was that we need to go to where our customers are. So not have them come to us. And when I talk about our customers, I'm talking about our partners, our insurance partners and our distribution partners. How do they access their customers? And so we think Instagram gives us an interesting set of experiments. Is it better for acquiring customers? Can we do it with lower cost of acquisition rates? Can we partner with social media influencers to really tailor the proposition to speak to a specific part of the market? And they're all parts of the experiment that sit behind Plan V Care. Insurers and distributors should be interested in what we're doing with Plan V Care because it's really an experimental initiative designed to unlock specific segments of the market. So we've talked already about one of the primary objectives being, can we increase the top of funnel activity? Can we increase those conversion rates? If we know in the UK in the D2C space that it's typical to have a conversion rate of somewhere around 2-3%, even less than that, how can we improve that? And if we know that the cost of acquisition is anything from £600 to £1,000, how can we improve that? What's the model for doing that? And these are the types of insights that we really want to pull out to be able to share with our distribution partners and with our insurance partners. One of the things that we've learned in our time in RGAX is that diversity of thought is incredibly important when we're trying to solve these wicked problems that we often talk about. So these are the complex problems where the solution isn't obvious. When you think about designing a proposition like Plan V Care, there are parts of the proposition that absolutely we can solve. So we bring the reinsurance expertise that you'd expect. So we can solve the underwriting, the claims process, we can bring the actuarial expertise, we can go through all the risk selection. So that's all very straightforward to us. But if you were to say to us, well, how do you design a brand for millennial women? I'm not sure that hand on heart we could say that we're the right people to do that. But having been in the market for 6-7 years, we're quite well connected now in the health tech and the femtech space. And so through one of our partners, one of our VC partners in London, we were introduced to a company called Moody Month. Now, Moody Month is really interesting. They have a business in their own right. They have a health and wellness app that's designed specifically for this audience. So they're established, they're doing their thing with their customer base. But during conversations with them, one of the things we talked about was, well, if you were going to design an insurance proposition for your customers, what would it look like? And so that really started the conversation. So what Moody Month bring to the table is the brands. They have designed the brand, the tone of voice. They bring the customer acquisition strategy. So it's them that understand the customer in a way that we can't because we're too far removed, and that's fine. But they've been really instrumental in developing the brand. And as I said, the product is part of this proposition. The distribution experiment with Instagram is part of it. And the brand is part of it because it's the brand that addresses those customer pain points we talked about at the beginning. So the brand will help us solve the confidence issues. The brand will help make women feel engaged and empowered by the decisions that they're making. So they've had an important role in the process. The distribution for Plan V Care is a really important part of it. And ordinarily, this wouldn't be something that RGAX gets involved in. And really what we're doing here is we want to experiment with where the product or the proposition is appealing to customers. So the distributors that we work with are absolutely experts in this space. But what we can do is we can run a set of experiments that provides insights and data that can be useful for our partners. Now, in thinking about where we could start with this, we have to think about where the commercial audience is, and that's Instagram. During the course of the process of developing Plan V Care, somebody said to me at one point that what the newspaper, the radio, the TV, what emails are to the 50-year-old man, Instagram is to the millennial woman. So we're talking about women between the ages, say, 28 and 38. This is where they go to find out about products, about services, about the world, to talk to their peers, their friends. And in fact, we know from customer testing that this group generally, they don't have TVs. They don't have a TV license. So they're not going to find a product or a proposition there. So where do they go? And we think Instagram's the right place to start. Now, one of the things that we can do is run a set of experiments within that. So not only are we measuring how appealing protection is in the Instagram space, we can also measure whether it's effective to work with social media influencers. And again, this is where Moody Month has been really important in identifying who those people are. So we have 3 social media influencers identified for Plan V Care. We have a finance coach, a confidence coach, and we have a woman who had breast cancer at the age of 31. Her friends had to crowdfund for her to stay in her own apartment. And she's really the ambassador for why do this today? Why should you engage with protection today rather than putting it off? So Instagram really provides an experiment. Is it more effective and efficient to acquire customers in this way than it is through, say, Facebook?
The key element for us is that we're launching this project to figure out. My answer could be something, but most importantly, I think we should be waiting for the growth of the project and see what exactly the information we're getting from that. We have a full data team as well working and supporting in this space. But it's true that in terms of design and strategy, we've been thinking a lot and spending a lot of time to discover. I do feel that one of the key points in terms, attracting the millennials and communication with them, it's being where they are, and then Kate just mentioned it, and where they are, the difference in social media. So you will find our Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, and etc. Our decision has been to focus on Instagram, using influencers as well, micro influencer to get this information. I think that's kind of for many other industry, it looks like, oh, that's natural. But I think for us, it's kind of revolutionary to really have this specific focus.
The key message that we'd like to leave with the audience, insurers, distributors, is that the days for having a one-size-fits-all approach are really gone when we're talking about the D2C space. What we can see is that customers' buying behaviors are changing. They're becoming more discerning. They expect more from us. They want propositions that are tailored to them. They want something that feels like a product or a service that they might engage with outside of the insurance space. If you think of Revolut or Monzo, they're examples of brands and propositions that have started to tweak their offering to suit a certain demographic. And I think that's something that we really need to consider in the protection space. What we can do is we can tailor the product or the proposition to a certain segment of the market. And, here we started with millennial women. But equally, we could have started with men over the age of 50, women over the age of 60. Really, what we've created is a model. So it's a model to experiment with, to see what data and insights we can extract that will be valuable for our partners.